Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and in today's video, we are going to be showing you off all of the KvK groups from those 144 kingdoms that are going into a number of KvK split between SB2, Bellerin Season 2, ST1, Tamara Season 1, SB1, Bellerin Season 1, and those coming out of Season 1 going into Season 2 for their first KvK season. So we're going to show you all the alliances that are there, what kingdoms they're from, and what the group powers are for how strong each of the KvK groups, and we'll show you one of the matchups. I'm actually in the middle right now of messaging players, officers, leaders from each of the groups to figure out what those matchups are going to be. So I will do another video after this where we'll go over the matchups and what the power thresholds are or powers are for each of the union sides. And then I may do another video that does some T5 breakdowns for some of the biggest groups. So hopefully you guys enjoy this one. And of course, if you know the matchups for any of the groups that we're talking about that I have not heard from yet, please feel free to reach out to me on Discord. You can always let me know in a comment too as well. But I always like if you are able to reach out to me on Discord. You can join the official COD Discord. You can join ours. A link to that will always be in the pinned comment description down below. And lastly, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us up because it helps out a lot. So let's break this down sheet to sheet. So we'll show you the preview first in-game, then we'll show you the sheet for the specific tab. So today, as you all know, SB2-1 through -8 are the current kingdoms that went into the Bellerin Season 2 map first. The next batch is SB2-9 through 15. So we have 7 groups, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that are going in or that have just started now. If we go and we take a look here on my sheet, you can see we're doing things a little bit differently now because there's a lot of groups that are going in. So I'm trying to kind of figure out this is just what we're going with for now. But we are going to show you the groups and the powers. So for SB2-9, we're going to go in order. So we'll do this. We'll go back to the in-game for the next season, then we'll come back to the sheet. So for SB2-9, this is actually the largest KvK group. So I know initially it was being reported that this might have been 112, 113 billion. If you strip away the fat from some of the extra alliances, the farms, the academies, the ones that are just really low power, that are probably not going to be more pure fighting strength, that's what we're kind of going off of here for this one. Now, you could make the argument on the 5.1, but I mean, they still could do something, right? Still could help out in more of a support capacity compared to an alliance that's 1, 2, or 3 billion or so on that. So for SB2-9, we have kingdoms 15, 96, 108, 110, 156, and 205. We got BTR at 16.6 billion, EDS 16.5, IL 11.5, Max 5.1, ROG is 12.2, ROV 7.1, BNR 12.6, BR-H 6.4, IMD 9.6, and then IME 9.4. So really close, actually. This is something I actually kind of like because I had to go through, just so you understand what I had to do. I have to basically go through all these kingdoms to get you guys all the numbers. I have to do it kind of the heavy grind way where I have to go through each one individually. So just imagine going into 2, then having to go into 3, then go 4, 5, 6. Like literally had to do all that individually in order to get the data for the current alliances that are there, which also will eventually kind of speak to the kingdom powers when I eventually do like a top 25 kingdom power list as well. But you can see the matchup right now for what it has been confirmed currently. It's EDS, IMD, IME, ROG, ROV versus BTR, BNR, BRH, IL, and MAX. So the matchup is 54.8 billion on one side, 52.2 billion on the other, so you have a 2.6 billion difference. And when you remove all the fat, it comes out to 107 billion. Now, the reason this is relevant is because if we take a look at the previous sheet, excuse me, which this was from those 8 KvK groups that went into B2, right? So the current or the farthest along KvK season. If we go to KvK power, you can see the strongest kingdom was actually 97 billion. That was the last highest powered KvK group, which was comprised of, what was that? That was 725. I think that's SB2-5, I think. Well, let's double check that. Yeah, so it's 7, wherever 7 is, yeah. So it's this group with TS, TC, FG, EXG, VVV, SLR, CFRA, ROP, and HRT. So that group is the one that ended up being the strongest going into the most recent. Now we've broken that at 107 billion, so 10 billion more. The other thing is that the powers are pretty close, right? You can see the range here. If we're just kind of talking top alliances, it's 9.6 to 16.6, right? So the middle of the pack is good. 15 and 96 are very close when you think about that. And then if you look at 108, 110, 156, 205, right, the numbers are closer, right? It's not exact, but they are closer. Then we'll get to SB2-10. SB2-10, I'll kind of do it like this one by one. So this is 17, 113, 116, 117, 183, and 206. Total power here is 80 billion when you strip away some of the fat. And again, you can make an argument for the 3.7 and the 4.6, but I just kind of left them in at the moment. You can always minus that off if you'd like. And if so, you're probably getting 8.5 lower, which would bring you to about 71.5. With that, though, we have ED, CMAR, ZOO, SHP, GLR, and MA for the top alliances in each of those groups. Again, from what I've heard, people were saying initially that this could be an FFA, but it's mostly undecided on who's going to kind of potentially pair with who at the moment. So once we kind of figure that out, we'll go. We do have matchups for SB211, but again, because I am wanting to do kind of a full matchup, I want to get all the matchups first before we reveal. We're going to do it like this. Then we get to SB211, which is comprised of 11, 12, 19, 157 through 159, 164, 66, 67, 171, 182, and 193. Total power for them is 69.1 billion when you add all of these up. And from what it was told there is that it looks like it's, or actually, I'm sorry, did I already? Okay, good. No, I didn't. It just ended up being that way. So theirs is apparently they're going to fight in Zone 2, and then like the winners of Zone 2 or something to that effect, something that's going to happen from that will then determine how Zone 3 plays out, and then depending on how Zone 3 plays out will determine how Zone 4 plays out, with the idea of trying to have the most balanced matchups in each zone. That's the preliminary bit of information that I've got, which I will say is a very interesting approach to how to go about it, where you're not kind of locking in. You're just basically, it's almost like you're treating, right? So like an example here, let's go back in game. So SB2, so it's almost like what you're saying is these two will fight it out in this Zone 2. These people may fight it out in this Zone 2, which again, depending on how you view that, might be rough. But then the winners will go to Zone 3. And then between these three kingdoms, maybe the top two go to Zone 3, and then you're having 4 kingdoms in Zone 3s, and then it's a 1v1, and then the winners of those two kingdoms will fight it out in the final. Like, I don't know if it's exactly going to work out that way, but it is an interesting way of doing it, where because the idea is they're getting everyone in the kingdom to basically sit down and have a conversation and say, how are we going to decide it, right? So that's one of the cool things. I'm always a big advocate for when all the involved alliances and kingdoms get into a Discord server, even if it's a private one or wherever it may be, and they are talking amongst themselves on how are we going to make this KvK season enjoyable for everyone? How are we going to get the most amount of PvP out of this? And how are we going to try to elicit as much engagement from the player base as possible? So I love what I'm hearing out of SB211, but we'll keep up and see how that plays out. Next is going to be SB2-12. And they're at 48.2 billion power for the involved parties. Also, for those of you wondering, I will talk about the NAs. I'm going to do that in another video when we touch on that. But basically, they're below they're below a threshold, a particular threshold for that season. So that's why I have NA, because they didn't have a strong enough alliance there. But I'll be covering that in a separate video a little bit more in detail, so I can show you exactly what I mean by some examples. But in here, we have 18, 102, 109, 187, 190, 191. Those are the involved alliances. You can see that the range is actually really close, and this makes me excited. When I look at a KvK like SB212, and I see that 5 kingdoms are within 200 million power of each other, and again, this was taken about 2 days ago, or sorry, on 531, and so then you have one outlier in MM that's 8.7. This is now them breaking from tradition on doing high, medium, and low-powered kingdom matchups, and now they're pretty much, for this one at least, doing a very close balanced one, and I love this, so I cannot wait to see what SB2-12 brings us, because I have some good expectations. And even if you see here on this one, the range for the top alliances is between 6.7 and 11.2, so it's 4.5, right, billion, so it's a lot less. If you look at the range here from top alliance, it's 6.7 to 11.8, so you have 5.1. If you look at the strongest here, it's 9.6 to 16.6, so the range is 7 billion, right? At least if you're just looking top alliance on how it ranges out there. But SB2-12 thus far is the most balanced KvK that we've taken a look at the moment. Then let's get to SB2-13. This is 40.8 billion for the total power, and we have kingdoms 16, 107, 115, 118, 186, and 211 that are active. So 6 kingdoms out of this group. The range here we have is at 4.1 for the strongest, and then to 7.5, so it's about a 3.4 billion differential. But if you look at kingdoms, with the exception of 16, now the ratio becomes 2.2 billion. And if you minus those 2 kingdoms, then it's 1.3, right? So a lot closer. So this is a little bit more balanced as far as top alliance matchup. And I like the fact that 16 actually has 2 evenly balanced alliance. I'm such a big advocate for balanced kingdoms, so I love the fact that we get to see a little bit of that there. So will be interesting. Again, this is a little bit closer, but it's not as close as, again, something like an SB2-12. We'll see how this one plays out. Then we go here to SB2-14, and you can now see a little bit of an interesting trend, where in this group, it's a lot of low-powered kingdoms. And this, for some, may be shocking. It was a little shocking for me when I initially saw this, because the strongest alliance, and I forgot to grab some of these alliance names. I apologize. I have to go back and do that. I didn't realize that until after I started, until after I was reviewing this before recording. But it's 4.7 billion, with the lowest strongest that we have, I think, is 1.1 that we have here in OCR. In total, this adds up to 37.9 billion when you factor in everyone. Now, the thing I will say is this, is that even though the powers are not that strong, and the fact is that this group is going into their 5th season, 6th season, give or take, these powers are lower than you probably would expect for how far along the kingdoms are. So we'll see. This is going to, I think, be an interesting test case to see, even though there's not any extreme outliers of kingdom power, right, with the exceptions of the 4.7 and then the 2 3s in Nora and BD20 from 13 and 20, will they see more fighting because there's not like a clear wide gap between the alliances themselves and the kingdoms, even though there's a number of lower powered kingdoms, way lower than what they should be at, based on the season they're going into. We'll see. And then we get to probably the biggest surprise of them all, and I'm sure this is going to surprise a number of people, is that in SB2-15, the reason we put NA here is because all of the kingdoms here are way below the power threshold for what even just one alliance's strength should be on average. So to give you an idea, all of the kingdoms here, I believe, do not have any alliances over 2 billion power. I think a couple of these were averaging between 1.3 and 1.5, but the majority of them are under 1 billion, and then a number of them are under 500 million. So that's why I put NA there, because none of them are really even missing it. Now, you could make the argument, why didn't I do that for this? Well, the difference is because these ones actually had a couple that were over 2 and over 3 billion. So that's just why I marked it there. Even though, yeah, I probably should have done the same here. I just wasn't really thinking of it in that moment, just because they were a good bit lower than SB2-14. So if you want to say that this kind of means that these kingdoms are deadish, I mean, kind of more or less, but it is just wild to see. So SB2-15 will also be one to look out for. And the reason I also say this is that, will they even be able to capture passes? Will they be even able to capture behemoths? That is what I think will be interesting with SB2-14 and 15, are the seasons just going to be a bust? And if so, will that cause more players from those kingdoms to leave and quit, stop playing? Is there even a point in them migrating anymore if there's not enough activity and not enough power to really make something of any kingdom? Those are some questions that I have, at least. Okay, now let's go ahead and we are going to look at the next group. And the rest of these are going to go faster just because the most amount of KvKs are in SB2-2, in SB2. So we're going to go to ST1. And the 3 we're going to look at here is ST1, 23, 24, and 25. So we'll go here. And we'll start with SB1, 23. So they're at 69.3 billion power. This is 243, 244, 249, 251, 257, 259. And this is IFAP, TG, OPA, EE, LT, DT, and ROA. Now, For the top alliance, we have a range of 6.1 to 11.1, so it's a 5 build difference. And again, but we still don't know what the matchups are for that. Then we get to the next group, which is 245, 247, 253, 255, 260, 262. We have 42.8 billion power. And we can see the range is 5.8 to 9. So that's 3.2 billion, so a little bit lower on that one, a little bit closer. Then we get to the last group, which is 242, 250, 254, 256, 258, and 264. They combine for 16.9 billion. And you can see the range is a little bit closer, right? It's 2.2 up to 3.4, so it's a 1.2 billion difference. This is a lot closer, but now you're starting to see, will something similar happen in ST125? That could maybe happen in 15 and 16 from SB2. We'll see. Then we're going to get to the next group. So the next one is SB1-1, and this is going to be 3 groups for SB1 SB1-30, SB1-31, and SB1-32. So in this one, we will scroll here. So the first group is 290, 292, 293, 301, 302, and 312. They combine for 53.6 billion power, and you can see the range is 4.3 to 7.1. So it's a 2.8 billion differential, at least when we're comparing top alliances. And again, we still don't know what the matchup will be for them. Then we get to SB131. That's 296 through 298, plus 305, 307, and 310. 25.4 billion for total power there. And you can see the range is 2.1 to 4.8. So we're looking at a 2.7 billion differential. Then we get to the most recent group, which is lower. And you can kind of see this trend of like the groups lowering in power. I don't know if anyone's noticed that yet from like when we start to where we end. It is interesting. We have 299, 300, 303, 308, and 309. And this range is 1.1 to 2.7. So you're looking at a 1.6 billion differential. Lastly, S2 PvP. There's only 2 groups here on this one. Or 3, sorry, S291, S292, and S293. So we'll look at 91. Oh, wow. Did I not do 91? Shocking. I thought I did 91. My apologies there. Thought I had that, but I didn't. Okay. So we'll just do S2, 92, 93, and then I'll work on that for the next go. Well, we have S2, 92, which is, oh, that's why, because 333 went in earlier, and 338, I think, before 399 and beyond did. I think that might be why, if I remember that, because I was having a conversation with someone, if I recall. But S292, we have 339, 340, 341, 42, 43, and 44. Power is 10.7 billion. Keep in mind, these are kingdoms coming out of Season 1. And the range for top alliance is 1.1 to 1.9, so there's an 800 mil difference. And the last group is S293, 345 to 350. And we have a 1.5 to 2 billion. So really close. There's a 500 million differential. So, and they're at 11 billion. So I'm pretty excited to see how S293 plays out, because very similarly to the ST1-12, I think, group was the one where these are probably like the 2 most appearing balanced as far as alliance strength versus alliance strength for the top alliances that are representing those kingdoms. So that pretty much does it for me on where we are at. Again, there's a couple groups that I'm excited about. I think off the bat, the ones that I'm probably going to end up doing like some T5 breakdown stuff for will probably be these 2, right? So you see how the powers go down and down as we eventually kind of work our way up. It is interesting when you think about the way they paired that out, because that's not how it would appear unless you pulled the data and you're able to see for yourself. But I think SB2-9, 100%, we'll do a T5 data breakdown. We'll probably do one as well for SB2-10, and then maybe SB2-11. For T1, well, maybe what I'll do is I'll do the T5 data breakdown for the strongest group in the other one. So maybe we'll look at ST1-23, and then we'll do SB1-30 for that, and then maybe we'll do Season 2. But I'll at least soft commit. I'll hard commit to SB2-10. We're going to soft commit to SB2-11, and then ST1-23 and SB1-30. At the moment to do some T5 breakdowns for those groups before Zone 2's open. There. Again, would love to hear what you guys think. Did you like this video coverage, the overview style that we're doing for this one, just because of some of the limitations with not being able to get into KvKs unless you have a level 16 account, which none of my scouts are, so this is kind of the extent of what we can do until we end up observing and getting some more information from looking at the map once they open, which usually takes about a week until they become observable from the kingdom list after you zoom out and take a look at everything. So yeah, would love to hear your thoughts. And again, any matchups, let me know. Can always reach out to me on Discord. That is going to do it for me. As always, until next time, we'll catch y'all later.